What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Midget Snowman, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Joel and I will take a look at the world of movie news and movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And then we will have our joint reviews of the new A24 film, The Florida Project, and the new Michael Fassbender serial killer kills people and leaves Midget Snowman in the wake of their killings film, The Snowman. Now, what are we going to think about both of those films? We're going to like one, dislike both, or like both. Well, you're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where my co-host and I will talk about anything, everything, and anything about movies. I'm with your co-host, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you were searching on the internet for, like a baking recipe or, something to impress your grandma with over this holiday season, and you accidentally came across this podcast, and you're not even a movie fan or even a podcast fan, well, hopefully we can convince you to be one. This is a home. You are allowed to come in here. Joel might scowl you, but I will welcome you with open arms. That's just how we work here. But if you're new to the show, welcome, like I said. If you're a returning listener, we love you all the same. What we typically do is we will go over some movie news and trailers that have dropped throughout the week, and we will, give our spin on it, give our commentary on it, and then we'll review movies that come out on the weekend, and then box office results to accompany those films as well. This is episode 204, and on this week's episode, the main reviews is the new A24 film, The Florida Project, starring Willem Dafoe and a cute little girl that's going to just pretty much blast through the industry with her talent. And then, of course, the new Michael Fassbender film, The Snowman. So it's going to be quite a magical week. I will just say that. But yeah, before we begin, guys, please, likes, favorite, subscribe, whatever you guys have to do. Spread this around. Let people know this is the definitive movie podcast that you get all your info from, and you just love hearing Joel and I's voice. And then also, before we begin, as you guys have noticed in the past couple weeks, I've been putting the time descriptions down below. So if you want to skip the news, the trailers, and you don't want to hear what Joel and I had to think about anything, but you just want to hear the movie reviews, then you can do just that. You can jump down below and listen to The Florida Project or The Snowman. Just go to the times that I listed below, and you can go straight to it, and you can bypass all this kind of fluff, if you will. So, yeah, and speaking of the Joel, he is over there. He is in the corner. He's ready to burst loose and talk about some movies today. So, Joel, how are we doing this week?
Ready to burst from my cage. I'm pretty good. It's been a busy week. I had, 3 screenings this week and a lot of work, and I went to my boss's wedding, and so the last 4 days have been all really early mornings and really late nights. And so I'm ready because today, tomorrow, and Tuesday I am off from work, so I plan to enjoy that. I don't really have much going today, some school stuff. Tomorrow, school stuff. Tuesday, got a screening. We have one together. But yeah, I plan to stay home otherwise. So I'm very happy about that decision. So.
It sounds like a very boring weekend, but you know what's really cool about those resting weekends is that we all need them, because as you can tell from my voice, I got like a cold going on. So you guys get sexy, low bass dropping voice Chase this week, which means, Joel, I never thought I'd say this, but since my voice is so low and sexually charged right now, we actually might jump into the erotic genre on Spreaker, and I'm just super excited that we might actually jump into another genre to get more fans. So it's just it all works out. If you guys hear coughing or nasaling or pausing a lot this week, it's because that is happening. I've done my best to take medicine, but it doesn't matter. I knew it was going to be like this, but that's okay.
I'll just talk like this.
Exactly. So it's just, welcome to the Sexy Fireplace Hour with Joel and Chase.
Fireplace Hour.
That's gonna be our erotic podcast, everyone. Tune in for more. So let's begin without any further ado. So let's jump into some movie news. Joel prepared the notes this week, so I'm just kind of jumping into all of these brand new. I look at them about 30 minutes prior before we record. So here we go. So we talked about the New Mutants trailer last week from 20th Century Fox, and it looks like they're going to take more of a horror kind of haunted house route, which makes total sense for, kids that have, these kind of mutations about them. It's already a horrific premise to begin with, so it actually kind of fits, and I really enjoyed the trailer. Joel enjoyed the trailer a lot, and so 20th Century Fox kind of wants to do a trilogy out of this kind of genre of superhero films, and so I'm okay with that. I kind of like I said last week, I like the fact that 20th Century Fox is taking the initiative to do something different within the genre. With Deadpool, we have like kind of the raunchy R-rated comedy romance film. With Logan, we have a really kind of R-rated, hard-boiled Western. And now this one, haunted house film. I'm sure Dark Phoenix will have some unique spin on it. So 20th Century Fox, man, I just love the fact that they're taking all these kind of just different directions and really trying something new to stand out from Disney and stand out from Warner Brothers, which I will always commend them on, and I will always support whatever decision that they want to do, especially after the huge success of Deadpool and Logan. I'm cool with this. I have no problem with it. I want to see the progression of these films. I want to know what's going to happen afterwards. I think with announcing this, I think I am now more solidified in this universe than I ever was. Because like I said, I do love Deadpool and Logan, but Logan is an in-chapter to a character. Deadpool, yes, it's in the same universe, but it's almost its own different genre. So going back into the X-Men, you have to throw something at us that will hook us and keep us invested for a long time. And I think really making this into a horror trilogy, you got my attention. So Joel, what about you? Do you think this is the right way to kind of go about this?
I mean, it's kind of perfect because you've gotten a lot of saturation of kind of the same thing from Marvel. They'll deviate a little bit from the norm, but it's usually, team or hero faces up against a villain. And that's generally their formula. And it works, but it is the same thing over and over again. And then with, you get a similar thing with Warner Brothers, and they're trying to fast track that, and it doesn't always work. And so here, trying something legitimately different, melding the superhero genre with other genres is a gamble, and it's a really interesting gamble. So this is kind of the first time with this news that tells me that Fox might set themselves apart from genuinely set themselves apart from Disney and Warner Brothers. And I think it's really interesting news. I'm certainly looking forward to all of them. I think that this is kind of the perfect, genre to meld with because of the nature of the characters. I mentioned it last week that they're, finding their powers by fighting a common enemy, and that enemy is, this is sort of a slasher movie villain, it seems to be. And it's really interesting. I'm certainly curious to see where that all goes from here.
So I have to ask you a follow-up question then, because Logan and Deadpool are very successful with their ratings. Do you think, because I don't think the Dark Phoenix will ever reach R-rated territory, but do you think with this kind of New Mutants, this kind of like new brand, fresh face group of people, do you think Fox, because we've seen that they've got the balls to do it twice before. Do you think they would have the balls to kind of push this trilogy forward into the R-rated category?
They very well could. I think that there's always going to be in their slate a movie that speaks to the audience who responds to the usual. So there's always going to be one of the team-up movies, and that's certainly what Dark Phoenix is going to be, just with, new cast of characters. They're all going to meet up and probably, fight a common enemy. That's kind of the superhero trope that is most common. So there's always going to be one of those in their slate. But if they're trying to, with the movies that don't center on the team, deviate with this treatment, then absolutely I think they would be smart to move it toward the R-rated crowd, because it worked with Deadpool, it worked with Logan, and I think that this will probably be rated R, considering, just the premise. And Deadpool 2 is obviously going to be rated R, of course. So I think that it would be smart for them to do that with these sort of side movies where they're not centered on a team, on like a team strategy kind of plot. Whereas, obviously the team strategy movies are gonna be PG-13. They're gonna appeal to the teen crowd only, basically. And yeah, I think it's very possible that's what they're aiming to do.
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. Because I think with the R ratings, I think people are starting to show that, yes, they love comic book movies, but they want to see kind of an expansion, more of like an adult feel to them. And, like I said, Deadpool kind of brought it in that kind of college-age raunchy crowd. And Logan appealed to everyone. I mean, I was... I even asked my dad whenever that trailer dropped, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that. Like it looks like a Western. Like it's something I'd be interested in." So if they can kind of push those boundaries and make them more appealing to more people than teenagers or kids, then I think that's what will separate Fox from Disney. And Fox has even said this in the past. They want to kind of move more towards an adult kind of studio, anyways, where they make just like adult films, that. Don't really cater for kids, and now adults can have something. So I like it. I like the melding of it. It's just it's quite magical. What is also not magical is Netflix's bank account. I don't know how the hell they're doing all this. So all right, so they plan on releasing 80 original movies next year in 2018. Now I only know of one of them. That would be The Irishman, which I'm excited for. I don't know about the other 79 that they could take a back seat to The Irishman, but this I don't know how Netflix is doing this, Joel, because they have reported numerous times that they're constantly in debt. Even this past year, I've noticed that every single Friday there is a new Netflix original movie. And it's starting to become overwhelming because you don't really know which ones you want to take a gamble on, and then 3 weeks pass, and then 3 more pop up, and it's a lot, man. And I can tell you firsthand, because Joel actually put me on to Netflix original movies through the summer when we were going to do a joint episode of talking about the Netflix movies and property that dropped throughout the summer. I watched like 12 movies, and I can tell you that this is very worrisome, because out of those 12 movies, I only liked about 1 or 2 of them. The rest were just like mediocrity filler. And it's like, I understand that Netflix wants to spit out that content as fast as they can because they know people pay a monthly subscription fee. They want to keep people hooked. I get that, but you got to slow down a little bit and focus more on, making the film as best as it can be. Like The Irishman, like you're going to let Marty do his own thing, which is great, but you do know that The Irishman's got a lot of promise, so you want to like put your focus on that. But then you'll have other ones slip by the wayside, and you don't really give two craps about it. So I don't understand why you have to pump out that many when there's only 52 weeks in a year. So I mean that's literally more than one a week. So I don't really like the fact that they're pumping all this stuff out. I mean, because they're one, it does put them more into debt, and then 2, the quality will start to slip, and I don't like that, because after watching that list of films that Joel gave me, I'm just like, most of these are like, they're competent films, sure, but they're so mediocre. Like, there's nothing awesome about them. And so out of that list you gave me, Joel, I only liked like maybe 1 or 2 of them tops. And so do you find this as a kind of a problem for Netflix and letting quantity overpower quality?
It's really bizarre because, as you said, they're in debt, like what, $30 billion or something. It's a weird decision to try to up the number. It's essentially almost like 1.5 a week. The equivalent of that. So obviously they're going to take advantage of, we got Creep 2 opening on a Tuesday on there, or dropping on a Tuesday on Netflix. So they'll probably take advantage of that quite a lot, if not 2 every Friday or whatever. but it's so weird. It's like I don't know who is. I guess there's going to be somebody out there whose job it is to watch all of them at some point. Writing for an online publication, whose job is to watch all of them. I can only imagine that somebody's been, cooking up a plan to give an assignment to their writer. You're kind of going to be our Netflix person. In which case, man, that's 80 movies. That's a lot of movies to watch on Netflix, and it's they've already got every other movie on there. Do they expect everybody to watch all of these? They usually release a lot. I'd say about 50, because they have all of these little. If you include the stand-up specials as kind of movie-length projects, then they have those. They have the documentaries that they release throughout the year, which probably outnumber everything else.
Plus everything that they license from other studios. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Like some of these are produced by them. Some of them are just distributed by them. And now we have this news that just dropped. I forgot to include it in the note point, but the fact that the Academy is kind of turning its nose up at Netflix, is that going to deter them? That something like The Irishman might be sniffed at because it's on Netflix. And even if it gets a theater distribution, then it's still on Netflix, and they're not going to give it the time of day. And does that deter them from wanting to kind of do this? Because ultimately, you want to impress people, and if you're not impressing the Academy, that's a problem. And so it's really bizarre to me that at this point, this is the decision that they're making, to make 80 movies in a year, or to distribute whatever.
Well, and on top of all that, we forgot to mention all their TV shows that they not only one license and two make as well. So
yeah, I mean that's probably going to number in it seems like 10 a year at this point, 10 or 15 a year. Of entire series. I mean, it's just like eventually they're just going to get rid of everything else, I guess, and they'll just have their own stuff. But they probably shouldn't go into debt in order to do that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. They should wind back a little bit, regroup, then go forward. Maybe plan 80 movies between 2018 and 2019, something like that. 40 a year or something. I don't know. That would probably cost less, because it's half the stuff that you're doing. But I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I guess that what they're going to do is just send their reps to, Sundance, Cannes, South by Southwest, all of these film festivals throughout the year, and then just get a bunch of acquisitions. I guess that's their plan. And it's just bizarre to me that they're doing that, and probably promising millions of dollars for each movie, and then getting more and more into debt. It's just weird. It's just weird.
It's one of those things to where I think Netflix wants to take over Hollywood. Yeah. They want to. They seriously want to release something every single Friday to have your attention, so you don't go out the house. Like, and we forgot to mention this. This dropped this past week. We know the release date of the Punisher series. And you know what day it is? It's the same day that Justice League comes out. And you know that they want to fire back and do that, because they did this back in March of 2016 when they released Daredevil Season 2 on the same day as BVS. So it's like they know what they're doing. And it's just frustrating because, like I said, most of their Netflix original movies are, like I said, they're very just average C, rated movies, and it's just, I just want them to focus more on, quality instead of quantity. So, we'll see how it goes. But The Irishman will be the kind of first one they ever do where it could put them either up there on the upper echelon or down at the bottom. So we'll see. But only time will tell.
I feel like my joking prediction a few weeks ago, I don't know if I made it on the show, but I've made it to several people, I think including you. My joking prediction that at some point before the end of the decade, we're going to get like a Netflix movie that is partly, supported by A24 and Blumhouse. I feel like that's going to come true at some point because at this point it's like these three things, and Amazon, obviously Amazon's not going to get in on that, but it would just be so funny if, we're watching a Netflix movie and suddenly the A24 thing comes up. I don't know. I just feel like that's on its way.
Listen, it's already weird enough to, because you're right. Like, we're going to see, crossbreeding with these studios. Like, it's already weird enough that, when you watch Whiplash, you see the Blumhouse logo and you're like, what am I watching right now? So, but yeah, so Netflix, I guess keep doing your thing. If you don't feel like your debt is hurting you, then God bless you. Because if Netflix has taught us anything, is that we can be in millions of dollars in debt and still keep moving forward and not be depressed. So there you go, folks. There's your lesson for the day. Also, what kind of makes me depressed is Disney's lack of creative skills, Joel. So Ronnie Howard, good old Opie, he released on Twitter this past week. They have wrapped up filming on that Han Solo movie. He said production is wrapped. They are done. And it is still scheduled to come out next year, hopefully, unless they switch directors during post-production. So they released the title of the movie. And Joel, I got to tell you, in my many years of doing this, I don't think there's a title that strikes me with such emotional spectrum as this title. When I first heard about it, I was like, this is it. This is the title that everyone's going to talk about. And so, I listen, my heart's too heavy to even announce it, and so I'm just so emotionally taken back by the extravagance of this title, Joel. And so, since you're the Star Wars guy, I would like you to announce to the world this epic title that Disney probably sat in a room for like 47 hours, almost 2 days worth, thinking of a title that would represent this movie accurately. What title did they give the Untitled Han Solo movie? Now be careful, Joel, because the way you're going to describe this, you have to have gusto behind it. You have to be confident, and you have to be like, this is it. This is the movie of the century. What is it titled?
Okay, yeah, so the title, after, like you said, a day and an hour short of another day, that they decided on was Solo, a Star Wars story.
There it is, folks. There it is. Everyone clap for Disney for their creativity skills.
Now, what's funny is, this was the title in the marketing for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. But I'm a title card guy. The marketing people and the people who make the title cards apparently don't talk to each other usually. And I'll give you an example. So, Furious 7 back in 2015 was marketed with the number, just the number, Furious number 7. But the actual title card spelled out 7, and James Wan said that it was an intentional thing as an homage to the Magnificent Seven, to have the number spelled out. So something got lost between him and the marketing people, who decided to campaign the movie with the number instead of the number spelled out. And so I always go by and it was sort of the similar thing a couple years earlier where it was called Fast and Furious 6 in the trailers, but it was actually just Furious 6 on the screen. And so I always go by the title card. It's the title of the movie. The people who made it know what they're talking about, not the marketing people. So funnily enough, Rogue One was just Rogue One on the title screen. So there was no a Star Wars story. Not even at the end did a Star Wars story ever appear as a title thing. So in the movie, there was nothing there. And if they go by the same rule and decide to do that again, it's just going to be Solo, which is like the most boring title in the world. I know I'm the big Star Wars guy and I defend everything. It's not like this really, needed a defense, I guess, but I can't defend it. It's just such a boring title. And Yeah, I don't know, man. It's it's so weird.
Listen, I'm just gonna say this, and then I'll bring up a proposal for Disney, and then I'll just drop it. I think the title's, like you said, it's boring, it's basic. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say, like, but here's the proposal I'm offering to Disney. If you do not, in some way, shape, or form, get your marketing department to call the Red Solo Cups and do a cross promotion, then you'd be the dumbest people on the planet. Listen, don't you want college students who are getting drunk in your cups to have the solo movie advertised on those cups? It is genius. If you don't want to have drunk ass people playing beer pong and seeing the solo, advertisement on that cup, then you're dumb. You're dumb, marketing department. So that's my only.
And then what you do is you go to Toby Keith and you have him rewrite his song to be, or maybe go to Weird Al Yankovic.
Drinking out of a solo cup while watching the solo movie.
Call it Han Solo Cup or something. And
seriously, it's so perfect.
Get Weird Al Yankovic to write a song, or maybe Weird Al Yankovic and Toby Keith to write a song and and have that in the commercials for the Red Solo Cups that are advertising.
Listen, Disney, we're giving you gold right now. So if you just want to hire Joel and I, just give us a call, okay? Just email us and let us know that we're hired. We will come work for you. But no, seriously, I don't care about the title. It's the thing I hate about Lucasfilm, and I hate to say it, Joel, but they tease Star Wars fans and they hype them up to the most nth degree, only to reveal just maybe okay stuff at that. And it's yeah, you'll have a good trailer every now and then, maybe a cool looking poster, but why'd you hype this up? It's I don't understand. They take you guys for fools, and it's I'm trying to look out for you guys. Listen, I get offended when titles and posters come up for comic book movies that look stupid and dumb, because it's wait a minute, you hyped the hell out of this for 2 months, and this is what we get? So I totally get it. It's frustrating, but it's a boring title that should have never been conjured up. But hey, you know what? That's why Joel and I aren't working in the marketing department, so hire us, and we can help you out. Red Solo Cups, there you go. All right, so the next bit of news is that Pacific Rim Uprising, didn't really care for the trailer. It's like a giant video game that your, brother or sister was playing and that you were jealous of playing, and then when you actually played, you're like, wow, this is a boring game. Since it is released by Universal, Universal also has another universe conjuring up, and that would be Warner Brothers, sorry. I'm such an idiot. Warner Brothers has all this stuff. As you can tell, guys, the cold has gotten to my head. Anyways, Pacific Rim Uprising is a Warner Brothers property, and so is Godzilla and King Kong. Now, Godzilla and King Kong, they're going to be mashed up. Godzilla 2 is coming out. You're going to have King Kong versus Godzilla. You're going to have this whole monster universe. I can't wait to see the origin story of Mothra, where he was once a moth inside of a closet in some granny's house, and then he just, exploded. It's going to be a great universe. Anyways, Pacific Rim, if you guys don't know the story, it's Jaegers versus Kaiju, robots versus monsters. That's pretty much it. So could this be potential for a shared universe? Now, the Jaeger robots do fight kaiju monsters, and they do kind of resemble a Godzilla-like, feature where it looks like they could fit into this universe quite well. I believe Warner Brothers is smarter than that, and I don't think they're going to go down that route. Now, money talks, Joel. I don't know if you know this, but Hollywood loves money. That green substance that turns everyone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Here's my prediction. I don't think they're ever going to cross streams. But if Pacific Rim Uprising is actually a bigger hit than its predecessor, there will be talks of combining universes. Now, if it is a flat-out failure, they're never going to make another Pacific Rim movie. They're going to push it to the side, and they're just going to continue on with their monster universe. I honestly don't know how you could do this. I don't know what type of story you could do. I don't know, because Pacific Rim, it's fun, but it's goofy. At least with Godzilla and King Kong, yes, they're giant creatures fighting in the city. It is kind of goofy, but it's a little bit more grounded than Pacific Rim. And I feel like if you combine both of those worlds, it could make the Godzilla King Kong universe even more goofy. I don't know if that makes any sense. It might just because that Pacific Rim Uprising trailer is just so video gamey that I feel like if you bring that over into the luscious cinematography of either a King Kong or Godzilla, it just would look very hokey. I don't know. I don't want them to do it, but hey, if Uprising makes money, then money talks. So that would be my thought process on it. Joel, I mean, do you ever see these universes ever colliding?
I sort of do. I think that the visual effects kind of are kind of aligned in a way that I don't know. It just seems like Kong and Godzilla, in terms of their visual effects, could fit in with the Jaegers and the kaiju. And Godzilla is essentially a kaiju. I mean, really. So I think that this could work. Whether I want it to happen, that's a different thing. I don't particularly. I think that people like Pacific Rim because it's an original property. Generally speaking, it's not based on a previous thing. So I think that inserting it into this world where, it's rebooting series, it kind of cheapens it a bit. Whether, that's not speaking to the quality of the new movie, which we don't know yet. I mean, we know the quality of the trailer, but and it doesn't look very good. But nevertheless, I think it kind of cheapens the Pacific Rim universe if they put it together. If they do this and it works, more power to them. They made that happen, or they will have made that happen, I should say. But yeah, I don't particularly want this to happen. For the fans of the Pacific Rim movies, especially, I think that it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know if it quite fits. Basically, it seems to fit based on the material that all of these are basically turning them into kind of old-fashioned kaiju entertainments. Pitting the poor humans against the huge monsters that are big visual effects creations. It kind of fits, but then again, Pacific Rim is it's still an original concept. So I don't know. It's very weird. It would be neat, kind of in a nerd way, because obviously Pacific Rim was inspired by creations like Godzilla and King Kong. That's obviously where Guillermo del Toro got his inspiration. But again, it's just like, I don't know. It's just weird. It would just be weird for them to do that.
I think you're right. It would cheapen it a lot. It almost seemed like just one of the most obvious red flag waving cash grabs ever. And it's like, Warner Bros., calm down. I realize that you guys are willing to rush things, but don't do this.
it would essentially be like them saying, "Oh, that this is why we did this in the first place. We wanted to make money off of it by putting it, somewhere else." And again, like you said, it's all about the capitalism of it. They want to capitalize on that, and it would seem cheap to me. But we'll see. We'll see if they actually do it. Obviously, this is just a hint from Stephen DeKnight, who said that we've been talking about a crossover. That was essentially the point of the conversation.
Well, Joel, and I'm glad you brought it up, because if Warner Brothers is listening to this, which I'm assuming some intern is, you better tell your bosses not to do this. Keep this out. Separate universes. Keep Pacific Rim fun, goofy, and over the top, and then keep the monster universe somewhat grounded. I would like it that way. Also,
and then if you get fired, we're sorry.
Well, I mean, Joel, why would you blame it on us? It's not like they listen to us. So there is that. Warner Brothers, just tread lightly. That was not a threat. I'm just letting you know. Don't do anything you're going to regret. All right. So the last bit of news is that Phantom Thread is the official title of the PTA. Paul Thomas Anderson, Daniel Day-Lewis, supposedly last movie, a that's coming out December 25th, and it expands in January 2018. But if Joel and I are lucky, hopefully we'll get to see it earlier. And sorry, Joel, I hate to do this on air, live in front of your face, but if I do get an invite to this, I'm asking someone else first to come with me, and if he can't come, then you can come.
Quit.
Listen. You know what's really great is like I hardly ever get to see this guy, and he's one of my favorite people ever. And he actually introduced me to Paul Thomas Anderson like 6 years ago. So he definitely helped me out.
He gets dibs.
Yeah, he gets first dibs. But if he can't go, then you my second boo, Joel. Anyways, but also the synopsis was kind of unveiled, and just thinking about what PTA did with Daniel Day-Lewis back with There Will Be Blood, this is such a huge shift from that. So check this out. Since there is a synopsis and a title, I'm assuming we'll get some type of teaser trailer or trailer soon, and I can't wait to see Daniel Day-Lewis back in a movie. So here's what the full synopsis reads. Set in the glamour of 1950s post-war London, a renowned dressmaker, Reynolds Woodcock, played by Day-Lewis, and his sister Cyril, is that how you pronounce it? Cyril? Okay. Yeah. Are at the center of British fashion, dressing royalty, movie stars, heiresses, socialites, debutantes, and dames with their distinct style of the House of Woodcock. Women come and go through Woodcock's life, providing the confirmed bachelor with inspiration and companionship until he comes across a young, strong-willed woman, Alma, who soon becomes a fixture in his life as his muse and lover. Once controlled and planned, he finds his carefully tailored life disrupted by love. So that's pretty much what the synopsis reads, and it cannot be so different from There Will Be Blood for sure. Just seeing Daniel Day-Lewis play a fashion designer already intrigues me. Seeing PTA kind of tap into this industry is intriguing, knowing his filmography. But what gives me hope is Inherent Vice. Now, hear me out. Inherent Vice has kind of like that psychedelic flair to it, and I know it's not in the 50s, but he's really good at capturing certain decades. So there's that. Also, Inherent Vice is it's essentially a romance film, and so is Punch Drunk Love. So if PTA can bring any type of inkling from those type of films into this, mixed in with the fashion design, obviously, and production design, it could be a very epic romance film. I know it's weird to say coming from PTA, but it could be a very well done romance film, and I'm okay with that. But knowing Daniel Day-Lewis, he's going to bring some type of extra acting power to it. And Joel predicted this months ago, but it's probably if he delivers another Day-Lewis performance that we know he's going to bring, it's going to be between him and Gary Oldman for the Oscar this year. That sounds like the two they're going to go at it. So just reading the synopsis sounds really cool, and I think this is if this film doesn't win anything, it is probably a shoo-in for costume design, production design, or something more of a technical aspect. And of course, PTA always has great cinematography, so who knows? But we need to see a trailer first before we can dissect it even more. But I think as a synopsis, I'm cool with it because I know PTA can do romance. So, Joel, does this synopsis get you even more excited? Do you want to see another romance film from the great PTA?
Oh yeah, for sure. I love PTA's work, and I think that he obviously met great success with Day-Lewis before. There Will Be Blood is a great movie, one of the best of a great year, and this synopsis is great. I just want to talk about it now. I love the name of Daniel Day-Lewis's character. I think that it's such a suggestive name. Like you'd think the last name was explicitly like about the kind of nature of his character, but it's such a suggestive name. I love the fact that there's technically a last name as his first name, Reynolds Woodcock. It's just a great name. And what's funny is that this made me happy finding this out, that Day-Lewis is retiring, and he's retiring to be a dressmaker. And he's a method actor, so he researches every role, and he began researching, dressmaking in the fashion industry, and he fell in love with it, and that's why he's retiring from acting, which just made me happy because he's kind of finding his or I guess another joy late in life, and it's just neat to hear that. I'm super excited for this. The trailer's probably, ironically enough, going to drop on the Gary Oldman movie. I suspect that's what's going to happen.
They're both focused features, right?
They are,
Okay.
yeah. And I mean, it's kind of perfect because you have two method actors going at it, for the Oscar, and it'll be weird that this is Day-Lewis's last performance and that Oldman likely has it in the bag, but it's going to be quite the battle at the Oscars for sure. And so I can't wait to see what that trailer has to offer. It was just classified as 2 minutes and 16 seconds or something. So we'll get it soon. We might get it sooner than that. We don't know. It could drop on really, well, anything between here and then. It doesn't have to be a Focus Features, but nevertheless, yeah, I'm always excited for new Paul Thomas Anderson.
Well, and just like I mentioned,
and I thought, on the note of Inherent Vice, that movie is a masterpiece. I thought that it was his best since like Magnolia, because I love that movie, and it would be great if he's working kind of in a similar vein of romance. Not obviously the story's different, but
Joel, that's the wrong answer. All of his movies are excellent.
All of his movies.
And I know I said this a couple weeks ago, but I'm gonna say it again to make you guys feel even more uncomfortable. All that money that Maya Rudolph got from her probably mediocre comedies and the Emoji Movie, just know that she is help funding this project. She's the one that brought this together, because PTA movies do not make money. She makes money in the household. I will guarantee you she funds his project. So just know that a little bit of that dirty Emoji Movie is going to play into the post-production of this film and distribution and whatnot. So there you go. I made you feel uncomfortable.
I'm telling you, like, that's why they're one of my favorite couples, because clearly there's a lot of love there.
Oh,
and she does this stuff obviously to have fun with it, but there's obviously a monetary thing. She's passionate about her husband's work, clearly, and it's just great. It's just great.
Well, I mean, if you hear her talk like on any late show, just the way she talks about him, and I remember her just having that whole story about how she's like, yeah, she was like, my husband wanted to make a movie in London, so we moved there for like 4 months, and we just got up and left. I was like, she was just so cool with it and so chill, and like that right, right there, you have found the one. So congratulations, PTA and Maya Rudolph. You were one of the weirdest couples I've ever seen, like, put together, but you make it work. And
they're so unlikely just on the face of it. It's just,
I know, right?
But then you hear about them talk about each other, and it's great.
It's infectious. And what's also infectious, Joel, is the news section that we had to talk about today. It was quite a magical week. So what was your favorite news story?
Oh goodness, might be. Trying to think, because there's some pretty neat ones. Probably the PTA thing. I'm just excited for it to like have some specificity and to find out that the synopsis. It's a really interesting synopsis for sure.
Oh yeah, that's definitely my pick as well, and it's just building up anticipation for that trailer. And PTA is very meticulous, so that the trailer is going to be perfect. He's going to try to make the best movie he can, so I can't wait for it. But we were talking about, Daniel Day-Lewis and Gary Oldman going head-to-head at the Oscars, and Joel is about to break down his Oscar roundup for this week. Joel, what categories are you going to throw at us?
This week, I'm going to be talking about the sound editing and sound mixing categories. So these are very much different things. People generally have a bit of confusion about how different they are, but editing is sort of the overall kind of. No, I'm sorry, that's mixing. it is kind of confusing, like because they sound so similar, but they are different. You can actually, if you can find it somewhere, a bit that highlights the difference was in the Oscars a couple years ago, maybe even last year too, where when they did the showcase at the Oscars, they had examples like they literally played us little quick clips of the movies and the sound. And that was one of my favorite things that year. But yeah, so this year's sound editing and sound mixing categories are pretty competitive, actually. But here's an interesting thing. So I'm going to do sound editing first. I'm just going to say that, of course, Pixar often finds themselves in this category. So, Cars 3 was this year, and there's a lot of car elements and everything, but the movie that's going to be their play for pretty much any category in which they hope to get a nomination is Coco, which comes out just in a few weeks, about a month. So don't be surprised if this shows up, because it could be that it's pretty complex in its sort of the sonic elements and the edits to put them together. It's always impressive work from Pixar. I think, was it The Incredibles won in this category or something? I think that might be the case back in 2004, or at least it was nominated. I don't know if it won, but it was certainly there. So don't be surprised if this gets in. Also, Baby Driver is a huge critical hit and an industry hit. People love it. It's probably not going to show up in a lot of categories just because they're so competitive, but don't be surprised if this gets in as well. I'm predicting that it does, particularly for a shootout scene, and I think the shootout scene is going to be the showcase. Chase knows what I'm talking about. And where they pair the music and the shooting together. Also, of course, Star Wars is going to get in there. Dunkirk has probably the year's best soundscape in general. So, and it's getting, raves across the board as being so. So that's likely going to get in. It would win, but I think actually that Warner Brothers is going to get Blade Runner 2049 up there, and I think that one's going to take it. So, but, and this is interesting, but bear with me. So, the sound branch is an interesting one because, until recently, they could only really vote in their own category. They weren't able to vote in they could vote like in Best Picture and their own category. That was basically it. I think they can vote in more than that now. But they generally, though, wanted to kind of stick up for movies they loved. And so that's how you got, like, inclusions like The King's Speech and Moneyball. Even though those are not really movies that you think of when you think of sound editing and sound mixing, both of them certainly had important sound elements, but they weren't like loud, a lot of background elements, a lot of audio motion, if you will. There wasn't a lot of that, but they got in because the sound branch wanted to stick up for them somewhere. So stuff like The King's Speech and Moneyball getting in means that a huge critical and industry hit like Get Out could show up here. It's not a movie that you think of as a sound thing, but it could very well get in here. And I'm actually going to get into that again with sound mixing to an even greater degree. So I think Get Out's like sort of on the bubble right outside this category. As is, I think the nominees are going to be Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, Star Wars, Baby Driver, and Coco. These will likely change on my website whenever I get closer, but that's, I think, where they sit right now. With sound mixing, which is sort of the overall presentation of sound in the movie, it's a little different. I think that Baby Driver is a little farther outside the category, and Coco even more so. But right outside the category, I think, is this year's musical kind of thing, is The Greatest Showman. Could very well get in. Musicals usually impress in this category, but I think that Get Out might show up here. This is the category where it seems that those movies that they wanna root for get in. Like, this was specific. This was the specific category where King's Speech showed up. People were surprised by that, and I think that Get Out could get into this category. Also, The Shape of Water is supposedly really impressive in its sound, and yet again, the other three are Dunkirk, Blade Runner, and Star Wars. I think Blade Runner is going to win both of these, though. So the nominees I'm predicting for Best Sound Mixing are Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, Star Wars, The Shape of Water, and Get Out. So that's where I think both of those things stand, with The Greatest Showman right outside there. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Certainly, Marvel could kind of get in here somewhere, but I don't know. I think that Disney's kind of best bet for a lot of their technical categories lay in the Star Wars movie this year. I think that there's so much competition elsewhere that really that's their best bet. So that's where the Oscar race stands in accordance with those two categories. And I will be back in 2 weeks with more categories, including costume and production design. So stay tuned on those, folks.
Yeah, sound is not really like my forte, but I do know when I walk out of a movie and if sound is one of those things that's high up on my list, then that I was paying attention. And I firmly believe that Dunkirk, I believe, has a better chance than Blade Runner. I think the overall sound mixing in that movie is just impressive. It doesn't matter if you see an IMAX or a normal theater, that sound will just knock you off your feet, and those dogfights alone, like, they solidify that sound mixing as like some of the best of the year. So I believe that Dunkirk, that will probably be the one that Warner Brothers pushes, but who knows? I mean, Blade Runner is a world-building movie, so you never know, Joel. That's why I'm not the expert. That's why you are. So, so tune in for another 2 weeks from now, and Joel will have his Oscar predictions again. So let's jump into some trailers, guys. Quite a magical week indeed. Can't wait to jump off with this one. All right, so Joel, before we begin into the trailers, how do you pronounce this? Is it acrimony?
I think so. I think it's I actually don't know, to be honest.
I don't either. So
I don't know. It might be acrimony. Honestly,
it might be acrimony. You know what? English, folks, it's terrible. All right, so
it is.
I'm just gonna say acrimony.
Nope, it's acrimony. It's
okay.
Acrimony.
So Acrimony is the new Tyler Perry movie where, Tyler Perry has no medium films. It's either he does goofy slapstick with Medea or these hard-hitting Lifetime dramas. So what are we getting this week? We're getting a Lifetime-hitting drama with some interesting cinematography in the environments, but very, set-looking in pieces for the inside. It's just really weird. Anyways, it's Taraji P. Henson. She, fell in love as a teenager, grew up, husband's cheating on her, and she's trying to figure out stuff. I mean, that's basically it. And we just see her kind of in a therapy session, and that's what drives the trailer. Like I said, the first thing I noticed about the trailer was the exterior shots were really well done. But then when we got into anything inside of a room, it looked like a set. So it was so weird visually that I couldn't even comprehend the actual narrative, but I rewatched it, and it just looks like a basic, I remember those movies, it was like once a year, it's like Tempted, Obsession, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor, like whatever the hell those movies were. Like it's just another movie to add to that list, but I do like Taraji P. Henson. I love her to death. Like, not only is she like super talented in everything she does, and she had one of my favorite kind of outspoken, angry scenes last year in Hidden Figures. She's also my celebrity list. I don't need to say anything further. I think you know what list I'm talking about. I do like myself older women, but she's always been on my radar. I have found her not only attractive, like I said, but like just super talented. And she's starting to really kind of come up the ranks. Ever since she did No Good Deed a few years ago, she's really been kind of blowing up, whether it be on her show Empire or in movies like Hidden Figures. and she does stuff like this, then she's going to have her own like Taken series as well with Proud Mary. But this one just looks like Lifetime garbage. Like I said, some interesting cinematography, but then it's conflicted with the very soapy soap opera looking sets from the interior scenes. But it just looks like a basic movie that I have no desire to see. Not even one of my celebrity loves like Taraji P. Henson can get me into that seat. So I don't really care about the trailer at all. So Acrimony, Joel, you ready to dive into this Tyler Perry experiment?
No. It's funny. So because of Boo 2 coming out, Chase and I were talking about, just Tyler Perry in general the other day. And I mentioned that I only seen one. I actually have seen two, and I think I was blocking out the other one. So I've seen For Colored Girls, which, originally, I think if you search in the back end of my site, I have a review that's very positive. But the more I think about that movie and the farther it gets, the worse it is. It's certainly got its good things. Performances are really impassioned and solid, but it's, and then the other movie is Temptation from a couple of years ago, which had Kim Kardashian in a supporting role, and all that. That was like the big story about that movie was the fact that it had Kim Kardashian, and then still known as Kim Kardashian, not Kim Kardashian West. Anyway, both of those movies are just really bad. And the reason is because, Tyler Perry kind of sells his movies, and his movies are considered like these great, tributes to women. But in his movies, generally speaking, the drama of the movie is in the suffering of the woman. And it just comes across as really off-putting. For Colored Girls presents several stories in which terrible, traumas and tragedies are presented as punishments for the women. And, Temptation, the entire story is this House of Cards lie at the end. I won't give anything else away, but it's just awful. And this seems like it's heading toward one of those kinds of things. I'm not going to see it, honestly. Only two movies burnt me out on Tyler Perry dramas. So, and I'm obviously not interested in his Medea movies. So this looks like your basic infidelity thriller, but I wouldn't be surprised if, in context, there's a bunch of stuff here that's really off-putting and kind of woman-hating. I would not be surprised at all. The premise is basically has one interesting thing in the trailer, and that's that she finds out, there's a fiance, which is really interesting. But other than that, yeah, I mean, like you said, it looks a little more stylish than his other movies, except on the inside of buildings. But whatever. It honestly, like, this was the filler trailer. Like, I like to do 5 trailers, and then I found 4 big ones that I really wanted to talk about. And then I found this one. I was like, okay, well, it's Tyler Perry. It's a talking point. I might as well include it. But it was incredibly, incredibly reluctant.
It was so weird because like I was hooked by that the overlooking of the city with like the fog and stuff. I was like, is this a Tyler Perry movie? And then when it gets into the stupid drama that happens inside of rooms, I'm like, oh, okay, that's where the Tyler Perry's at. Yeah, Joel brought up an interesting point. It does have like a different hook to it, that goes beyond the infidelity thriller, like what, like you said, finding out about the fiance. I'm wondering, since she's in a therapy session, I mean, it could be more a psychological thriller than anything. I don't know. It could surprise us.
And it could be that basically she's actually the other woman. That's immediately my guess.
There you go.
When I watch this, that actually he's been probably engaged for a while and she's the other woman, and that's it. It would be an interesting thing if it wasn't from this director, honestly, because I think that that, again, there's just such a woman-hating element to his dramas, at least the two that I've seen, and, there are two of them. It's likely in other movies as well. But yeah, I mean, his dramas go way over the top. And it would be interesting. I'm not going to actually try it, but be interesting to see. I assume this trailer is playing in front of Boo 2, and that's a silly comedy that parodies Get Out and all this other stuff. And it would be really interesting to sit in the trailer segment of that movie and watch the trailer for this, knowing that they're the same director. It's so weird. Anyway, this guy works in two modes, like you said, and that's basically it. So,
well, it is what it is, Joel. People love those movies. I will never understand it, but whatever. But this next trailer, Joel, I'm super pumped for.
Oh, yeah. This is the really impressive second trailer for Black Panther, which, of course, is the new film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it comes from director Ryan Coogler. This movie looks more and more awesome. On an action level, this movie looks like it's easily going to be the most impressive, and that's not surprising considering the staging and execution of the combat or the boxing scenes in Creed, which were mostly done in one takes and had a sense for the choreography and the geography of them. Of course, I think it's different cinematographers, so there might be a different element here, but nevertheless, even if it's special effects heavy, it looks really impressive, and that was the big thing. It mostly achieves the same feeling as the first trailer, but it is a bit different in that just the action looks really graceful, uncommonly graceful for Marvel, I think. Sometimes they can get a little bit, like stagey, I think, but this doesn't look like that. It looks like it has some really graceful camera usage, and it just looks really impressive. And once again, using a hip hop song to really great effect in the trailer. I'm just so excited. We got to see a glimpse at Michael B. Jordan. We got to see Lupita Nyong'o. Just a little bit more of everybody, basically, and it's really an impressive trailer. So I'm so excited. It comes out on February 16th, and I can't wait.
Yeah, you said everything. I mean, because that first teaser trailer that came out, I think the one thing I noticed was just the construction and how energetic the trailer was and how it used a hip-hop song to fuel it, and it gets you pumped. And this one did the exact same thing where it's a little longer, and it still gets you pumped. And
it's a perfect like topical kind of music choice because, as typical as it might be to say it, hip-hop is used by the black community as, this kind of pump-up music, whether it's a serious social issue or just to have fun. And here, it's kind of perfect that it's pairing it, with a movie that has the title Black Panther, that it's a hip-hop song. Hip-hop is about taking the power back. This is a movie about, an African prince who kind of loses a lot and has lost a lot already and is taking it back through vigilantism. It's a great kind of conference of all of those elements, and together to sell us on this idea. They really picked a perfect director. Also, this has been really sweet to see because early on in the development of this movie, Ava DuVernay was signed on, and then she went on to do Wrinkle in Time or something instead. And what's really been very sweet is on Twitter, she's been retweeting the heck out of the trailers for this and complimenting Ryan Coogler. And it seems like it's just like this, this really comfortable passing on of the material. Obviously Ava DuVernay might have wanted to do this. She just decided to choose a different, project. But it's just been really sweet.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's these trailers it captures like this unique world that we've really never seen before. It kind of reminded me of Asgard in the Thor films, except this is on Earth. This is in a different continent, but it looked like this mystical fantasy land.
Asgard is one of the most impressive visual effects, like location creations I've seen, especially, I was kind of lukewarm on the second one, but they really get you deeper into the whole place than the first movie did, even. And this looks every bit as complex visually, and I really like Wakanda. I really like the looks of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
The visual look and, like you said, the fighting style. Like, dude, that one shot where Michael B. Jordan's like approaching the camera and like the suit just kind of like overtakes his body. Like, it just gets you so amped up. You're like, yes, I want to see this. And it's really funny. Someone brought this up that if you played the Human Torch in a Fantastic Four film, you get a second redemption because Chris Evans has done that, and now Michael B. Jordan. So congratulations!
There we
if
go.
you play the Human Torch, then you get a second chance at life. So
everybody just sign up to play Human Torch. Just
I was fixing to say,
a random movie, and then just have the director make it horrible. And then
or Green
go
Lantern.
into the MCU. There we go. That's your best bet.
Exactly. So it's another great trailer to add to it, and it's going to play in front of Thor Ragnarok. It's going to get people interested in that, and of course, when we get to Black Panther,
likely Star Wars as well,
and Star Wars, because Disney just owns everything now. And then with Black Panther, like we're probably going to see, the Avengers Infinity War. It's just. Dude, they got that whole system locked down. I don't even know how to tell them how to do marketing. Unlike Lucasfilm, who doesn't know how to do anything and names their movie Solo after the Red Solo Cup.
I know that I seem a bit, lukewarm toward Marvel sometimes, but we are entering a very exciting part of this where, we're getting closer to Avengers Infinity War, which I think, I'm a little nervous just because it could be overstuffed, but Black Panther, Avengers, I'm excited for next year. Marvel,
Joel, welcome to the dark side. I'm glad that you can finally join me and we can actually talk about something instead of bickering all the time like an old married couple. All right, so the next trailer is one I've been anticipating a lot, and the teaser trailer dropped for I, Tonya, and this one's about the ice skater Tonya Harding, and Margot Robbie is starring in it. She's producing it with her husband, so it's a nice family collaboration, right? And so when the trailer played, I looked for basically one thing. Is Margot Robbie going to actually sell us as a great actress? The first thing I ever saw her in was The Wolf of Wall Street, and she was very good, and she went toe-to-toe with Leonardo DiCaprio. I appreciated that. Her as Harley Quinn, I'm indifferent to because I don't like that movie, but she gives 110%, I guess. That movie Focus, it's whatever. I've really never seen her actually become that powerhouse that she wants to be. But this was the project that she wanted to do to prove us that. I thought she was fine in the trailer. She almost had kind of like a Harley Quinn accent going on. I mean, we need to see like either A, another trailer, or B, the movie to really justify her performance. But as far as the teaser goes, I didn't really feel like she sunk into the character that much. I almost felt like she was playing a caricature almost, and I gotta address the elephant in the room. That green screen CGI is annoying. I don't know what that was, but that thing would just stuck out like a sore thumb, and I realize that you have to do that with the shots that they were accompanying, but that green screen work was a little rough. But this is a film that's going to be performance based, and this could land her into a Oscar nomination type of situation. So I hope that is the case when I see the movie. But as a teaser goes, I thought it was fine. But I'm glad that she is, pushing herself to do bigger things in her career. She's not that old, by the way. Like, she's around Joel and I's age, which is hard to even fathom. But she's still young in her career to where she's going to get plenty of opportunities to do this stuff. But as far as what she's trying to do for this and trying to push for an Academy Award nomination, it feels like she's in the right, she's got a good heart, but I didn't think it was an effective teaser. Maybe I just need to see a better cut trailer. I have no clue. But Joel and I have not discussed this, so I want to know his thoughts on it. So, Joel, did this kind of strike you as like a good Oscar contender?
I'm way higher on this than you. I love this teaser. I think that this whole story... By the way, she is several months younger, I think, than both of us. What month were you born in again?
I was January of 90. She was born in April 90,
July,
right? Or July, something like that, yeah.
July of 90. So she's younger. She's younger than both of us by several months. You're just a couple months younger than me. So anyway... I love this teaser. I think that this is sort of an interesting career transition for her. It reminds me of Charlize Theron when, she played these kind of solid side, women roles in movies, then along comes Monster, and where she's kind of planing herself up, if you will, in this role, where she just kills it as this incredibly, a controversial figure. Obviously, there are different levels of controversy here, but Tonya Harding, if you don't know the story of Tonya Harding, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but it's going to be very interesting to see her kind of transition into this role where, she's not as traditionally beautiful as she is in real life. She's kind of, she put on a little bit of weight. It's going to be an interesting transition for sure, and I think that she could really impress. But yeah, I mean, it looks like your typical biopic, just maybe with a sense of humor and some Martin Scorsese inspired narration. It's an interesting trailer because just the cutting of it, I guess, is interesting. I don't know. It's just like interesting.
But I mean, like, yeah. It premiered at some festivals, and a lot of people are saying that Margot Robbie has a nomination in the bag. So I don't.
And that Allison Janney, I don't know who she plays in this, but
I believe it's her mom.
Yeah, I think so. And it's she could have the supporting actress in the bag, like the win. Possible, because I've been hearing really impressive performances.
So yeah, I'm not taking away from the film's praise so far. I really want to see it. I want to see her do things on her own and not just be like, oh, that's the chick from Suicide Squad. Oh, that's the naked chick from Wolf of Wall Street. Because let's face it, that's what she was known for years. And now she's trying to step out and have her own career. I want her to do that, and I'm looking forward to the movie. I just didn't think the trailer didn't strike me as as powerful as I thought I would, but, I'm still looking forward to it, and Joel and I will probably see it together. So there you go. End of story. What's an interesting story is the trailer that Joel is about to bring up.
Yeah, this is, I'm just going to say it, my favorite trailer of the week.
Same.
So this is Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. This one is a documentary, a Netflix original documentary from director Chris Smith, and it is the story of Jim Carrey's kind of he basically his disappearance basically into the character of Andy Kaufman, who was a very controversial comedian who kind of disappeared or something like that. It was weird. Like, we don't really know where he is or if he's alive.
Let's just put it to you this way: he's such an oddball comedian that people still think he's alive today.
Yeah, pretty much. And in all likelihood, he's dead, but nevertheless, we don't know because he kind of disappeared from, the public eye for so long that it's interesting because Jim Carrey is this actor who, let's face it, he disappears into a lot of roles. We think of Jim Carrey as his characters, Ace Ventura, Lloyd Christmas, maybe he's, somebody, the Grinch or somebody, I don't know, but we think of him as these characters, but really he disappears into each of them. It's a persona. There is a real person there. Obviously we see him in interviews. He's a little more restrained, at least. Sometimes he does, enter his comedic phase. But since this movie, I didn't even really notice it until I watched this trailer that since this movie, he's been kind of a different person than he seems to have been before that. He's had some stuff happen to him since then, but here it's a documentary that kind of studies how he went too deeply into this role, that he tried to become Andy Kaufman and, in a sense, kind of became a diva, kind of just pushed a lot of people away, we're talking about the movie Man on the Moon, directed by Milos Forman. And, you see a little bit of the interaction between them in the trailer that seemed to be kind of, easily ignitable. And I haven't seen that movie. I really want to because Milos Forman made Amadeus, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I hear that this is a movie that's very nearly as good. And I really want to watch that and The People versus Larry Flint, which was the one that he made right before that, because those are his three apparently great biopics. And this one, it's basically about how Jim Carrey kind of lost himself in the role. I mean, he even says it in the trailer, in some scene in the movie. He says that he didn't know who he was after he finished the movie. He had lost himself. And now, we've seen him just recently in that bizarre red carpet appearance where he's kind of talking about how he doesn't exist or whatever. I don't know if you saw that, but this really bizarre thing where he's kind of, I don't want to say unhinged, but he's kind of unhinged himself from some form of reality that he feels is kind of a facsimile of reality, that he's trying to essentially disengage from public life a bit, or the feeling that we get from a celebrity living what we think is a public life. It's just a very interesting trailer. It's well cut. It comes out on Netflix on November 17th. My goal is to see Man on the Moon before that point, so that I'm obviously going to watch this so that I can get that context. But it's a really good trailer and a really interesting story. So, because I didn't realize it got to this point. Like, I didn't know that. Obviously I haven't seen the movie, but I also haven't looked into it at all. So I didn't know that this was the story here, that Jim Carrey essentially lost himself in Andy Kaufman and never quite returned. Because he went on a different career trajectory after that. And, he was big in the 90s. He did this movie in 99. And then, he had stuff like The Grinch. He had stuff like Yes Man and Fun with Dick and Jane, where they were fun, comedy roles. But he also did Eternal Sunshine. He also did The Number 23. He also, did all these things that were out of his comfort zone, so to speak. But perhaps out of his comfort zone isn't the right phrase to use. Maybe he was finding a different comfort zone. And that's what this documentary seems to be about. It seems to be kind of this handicapping of his career after that point because of this movie. And it's really interesting. So, Chase, what did you think of this trailer?
So let me start off by saying that, there was that interview that dropped a couple weeks ago where basically Jim looked like he lost his mind on the I forgot what question they asked him, but he went to like some philosophical answer. Yeah. And it was quite magical because
he was making a great point.
No. I mean, he's a smart dude, and
yeah.
I don't think people understand the impact that Jim Carrey is one of those actors that has been throughout all of Joel and I's lives. Because he's been there since we were kids and all the way up until now when he's doing more experimental stuff.
One of the first movies I saw in a theater was Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy shaped part of my childhood, essentially, with the movies that he was in. I then saw Liar Liar in theaters. I saw I didn't see Dumb and Dumber in theaters. I saw that later on. But nevertheless, I mean, he shaped my childhood. I obviously saw The Grinch. So, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think people underestimate him as a good actor because they just assume that he's Goofy Jim. He's actually in 3 of my favorite movies of all time. Comedy-wise, Dumb and Dumber. That movie I've seen 1,000 times and it still makes me laugh. And
it's great.
The 2 dramas that always get me, The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine.
Oh, yeah. The Truman Show, I saw The Truman Show in theaters as well. Yeah. That's amazing. That's my favorite performance of his. Actually.
Yeah, if people just look at Jim Carrey and just assume that he's this wacky comedian, he is one of the best actors ever. Like I'm not even joking. Like Dumb and Dumber is one of the best comedies ever made. Eternal Sunshine is one of the best romance films ever made. Truman Show is one of the best dramas ever made. Like and Man on the Moon, I saw. What was it, last year or 2 years ago? And that might be the best performance he's ever given. Like, it's such a fascinating movie because I never knew anything about Andy Kaufman. And when you watch the movie, you want to do research on this guy because he was a different comedian. This was a guy, like it said in the trailer, he didn't care if you laughed. He was more, privy to making you confused and just being like, kind of glued to your seat, like just wondering what the hell was going on. And that's the way Andy Kaufman worked. I had no idea he was on SNL for a little bit, and he was so crazy and outlandish that of course they had to let him go. But like, it's a really fascinating comedian's career, and to see Jim Carrey kind of portray that and see him really go into that method acting type of level is really awesome, because that just shows you how dedicated Jim is to his work. But Joel is correct. Like, Andy Kaufman is such a weird individual that with Jim sinking into this role, it has changed him. And he's done a lot more personal films, after this one than, most actors would do. And, that's what makes his career so great is, like, in the 90s, he was known as this goofball comedy actor, when he did Man on the Moon and Truman Show, that really shaped him. That changed the course of his career. Now, he does stuff like Eternal and dips into some weird, not so good horror films like The Number 23, but then does, comedy still. Like, he's one of the best actors ever. And I love the fact that this documentary exposes why he's a good actor, shows you the levels he went to. I'm curious to see what happened behind the scenes because I do like the movie quite a bit and I want to see how he did this. So, by far the best trailer of the week. I mean, Netflix, I might not like your movies so much, like your narratives, but your documentaries are on point. You, like, the documentaries they've done, whether it be in TV show form or in full film form, they've been outstanding. So I'm looking forward to this, and it drops on the same day as The Punisher. So there you go. You get a double feature, Joel, as well as watching Man on the Moon. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. And so that's it for that trailer. And so the last trailer, oh man. All right. So hold on, my notes went dark. Is a film called 12 Strong, and this is Warner Brothers just plaguing our episode today. It's done by Warner Brothers, and this is about 12 men who went rogue after 9/11 and tried to go fight terrorism on horses. No joke, that's exactly what the trailer suggests. Has Chris Hemsworth, Michael Shannon, Michael Pena. It's being released in January, so they're capitalizing on that American Sniper trend where we're going to have patriotic films in the cold, dead winter of January for some weird reason. The trailer's solid. I'm not saying it's a bad trailer. It's, got some interesting cinematography. Chris Hemsworth is actually a good actor, by the way. His movies have not been clicking with people. If you have not seen, speaking of Ron Howard's better films, Rush, if you have not seen that, please watch that. I think that's probably one of Chris Hemsworth's, I can't even speak today. It's one of his best movies. But no, this trailer, it's a solid patriotic film that's going to get people in the seats. Rah, rah, America. I get it. It's a trend. However, what I like about the trailer is I had no idea this even existed. I had no idea that these group of men basically went rogue and tried to do stuff on their own after they saw the horrors of 9/11. I find that kind of cool. I did not know about this story, so I'm fascinated by it because it's a different patriotic movie that I'd never even heard about. So I think with the right amount of good actors and interesting premise, I'm willing to check it out. And I kind of want to see Chris Hemsworth do a war film, essentially. So I'm down for it. And Michael Shannon is one of my boys. I will watch him in anything. So yeah, I think it's a solid trailer. I'm not like jumping up and down for it, but I'm cool with it. Joel, did you like this one?
I did. There's not much to say about it. It looks like an interesting story. It looks like they're presenting it well. It's obviously, it's also capitalizing on kind of the 13 hours.
Yeah, I forgot about that one too.
The weekend of. And but it looks good. It looks like it's going to be in the vein of stuff like 13 Hours and Black Hawk Down. about this kind of specific situation where they're pinned down. And yeah, it looks solid. The most interesting appearance in the trailer, though, is Rob Riggle.
I know, right? That was really weird.
It's weird, except that I actually found out something about this. He's a former Marine,
Yeah,
and he is playing his former commanding officer. So that's going to be very interesting to see, because he probably just went back to his commanding officer and said, "Hey, can I walk around with you a little bit, mirror you, and then play you in this movie? Is that okay?"
Yeah, it was really weird to hear Rob speak about that, because back in the day I did a kind of like a it wasn't a round table, it was more of like we went inside of a trailer, and Jake Johnson, Damon Wayans Jr., and Rob Riggle came in, and we talked to him about Let's Be Cops, which was I didn't really like that movie, but it was cool talking with them. And Rob actually mentioned that. I was like, oh shit, he was in the military. But that's cool because he can bring his expertise to that role and make it seem authentic. I mean, it's not uncommon to see kind of primarily comedy actors do a military-esque role, and like I said, this makes sense since he was in the military. I think it's one of the more fascinating career transitions I've ever seen, when you have this military mindset dude who basically jumps into comedies, improv comedy, and kind of does a more comedic switch with his life. It's hey, you do what you do, right? But yeah, he was in there for that one brief shot. And believe it or not, I sat back for a little bit as the trailer was going on, and it took me 10 seconds to process. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, was that Rob Riggle? So it took me a second to comprehend what I just saw. But yeah, so Warner Brothers, I guess you found your niche with...
It's sort of like finding out about Adam Driver being in the military.
Yeah, he was in the
you
military
just don't expect it. He was in the Marines as well, yeah. And... for a briefer period of time than Rob Riggle, but it's interesting. It's interesting career transitions for sure.
Well, like I said, whatever works for you, because if you would have never told me, I would have never assumed Rob Riggle was a part of the military, because he's just a naturally charismatic and funny dude where I'm just like, he probably had a life as a bartender somewhere. It's like, nah, he was in the military, fam. So as we expressed before, our favorite trailer of the week was the Netflix documentary about the Andy Kaufman story with Jim Carrey. It's going to be fun stuff. So guys, let's jump into it. Let's jump into the main reviews for the week. We're going to be doing the Florida Project first, and then we're going to be doing the Snowman. Now, Joel and I already know what we think about the movies, but I want you guys to try to guess where we're going with it, because it's one of the biggest grade gaps we have ever had on the show. So get ready for it. So
I mean, if you guys don't believe us, I have the reviews up on my website, and because of the, I alphabetize the main reviews, and they're right beside each other. So it's very reflective of how we feel here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to jump into it, actually, on both of them, because one of them I'm going to praise, and one of them I'm going to have a nice stern finger pointing in the face, wagging, talking down to. So we're going to be parents, Joel. So congratulations, we're going to graduate. All right, so let's start with the Florida Project, the new A24 film. Joel, what is this movie about?
Yeah, this one comes from director Sean Baker of Tangerine, and it doesn't really tell a story so much, but it follows the activities of a sort of a group of families with a specific goodness me, my focus on one mother-daughter pair, but it's a hotel that sort of is the residence of a series of small families who cannot afford housing in apartments. It's essentially right above that line of poverty. And the owner of the hotel is played by Willem Dafoe. His name is Bobby. He's kind of presented, because of the perspective, as this sort of mentor-villain mix where, he can get onto you and he has his consequences for actions, but he's also got his ward's best interest at heart. And so the main sort of who we follow is this mother-daughter pair played by Bria Van Knight and as the mother, her name is Haley, and Brooklyn Kimberly Pierce, who plays the young girl named Mooney. And it's basically just a movie that kind of follows this girl's adventures with her friends. Scooty, played by Christopher Rivera. Briefly, a little boy named, actually forgot his name, but he leaves in the midst of it. Let me see. And then eventually a girl named Jancy, played by Valeria Cotto. And let's see. Oh, Dickie, that's right. Dickie, played by Aiden Malik. Anyway, just kind of follows these kids as they basically they're kids. It's funny because they're terrible kids. Like they're terrible kids. They do terrible things. They at one point set this place on fire and kind of cover it up, and nothing's ever done with that. It's never found out who does that, at least in the movie. So they're terrible kids. They are they have no real direction from parents who often enable their behavior because they're desperately trying to raise them in this sort of miniaturized bubble of poverty. And eventually the mother loses her job. She has to bed men in order to make the cash for each week where she pays, or like month or something. She pays the daily charge for a hotel room kind of adds up to rent at the end of a period of time, and she has to be able to make that cash. And what we get here is a sense of joy, surprisingly enough, because while the setting is bleak and dark and cruel, we're seeing it through a kid's eyes. That's going to sound like it's sort of an oxymoron that, on one end, we get this child's version of it, of poverty, and on the other end we get an actually realistic view of poverty. That's actually the greatest kind of coup here from Baker and his co-screenwriter Chris Burgock, who present this. I'm just getting into my review now.
Well, geez, Joel, just jump into it.
Just jump into it. I'll just do this then. I don't have any negatives. Let's just say that. I really don't. Maybe like one hang up. It's the same one that you have, but that you'll ultimately have. I don't have any negatives. I just have this one hang up that they spend too little time with Bobby's son, who's played by Caleb Landry Jones, in like 2 scenes. I think we either needed to have that leave. I think we agree on this, by the way. We're basically just gonna say everything that the other person is saying. They either needed to like cut that because it's not really important to his character what his status is as a father, or give us one more scene or something. That's basically my hang up. Otherwise, this is a great movie. I will let Chase take over and give his negative.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we saw the trailer, a few months ago, like, we said that, like, this could be one of the best of the year. Like, just everything is clicking. What it looks like, the acting, cinematography, just the overall, tone of the film. It looks like it could be a really nice experience at the movies, and why we like to go to the movies. And Joel is correct. It is a wonderful film, and we almost have the same grade, but we have the same, basically, the negatives. And the only negatives I have, which is going to be great, because we're going to do the opposite for the Snowman and start with the positives and then jump into the negatives. So, yeah. Anyways, for this one, the negatives are very minimal. Joel is right. Caleb Landry Jones has been shafted twice this year in entering movies where you could actually take his parts out and it wouldn't make a difference. One being American Made, and now this one. I think the guy's a super talented dude, but if you're going to focus on his kid in 2 scenes, by the way, especially have one having a conversation about their home life, you need to expand that or you need to cut it. Because that's where my other issue relies, where it's the film meanders a little bit, and you could have cut down like 10, 15 minutes, and problem solved. You could have cut out his kid and really just kind of made the movie a little tighter, and it would have flowed a little bit better. Because the thing with Willem Dafoe's character is he's like a father to these children at the motel. There's even one scene where he protects them by basically shooing away and almost, kicking the ass of a pedophile, and you see the fatherly love that he exuberates, on these children, and that's all we need. I don't need to know about his home life, but if you're going to show me his home life, show me a little bit more, because there's a scene with his son where they're talking about their home life, and it just seems so out of place and so out of context because we don't really know anything about them. And it's
interesting because it's well performed and it's really powerful, but it just seems like they could have just cut that, because it's not important at all to the rest of the story. We don't gain any more insight into the relationship that's referenced.
Correct.
Through that dialogue exchange. We get that one reference. It makes me think that there might have been more on the cutting room floor of this angle, but cutting the two scenes would have been it would have made it 105 minutes instead of 115. If that, I don't even know if it was 10 minutes. So yeah, I mean, you're totally right. It's one of those things where it's more of a hang up than a negative, but it's
but I mean, it still needs to be addressed because I think and I've learned this by going to film school. Try not to edit your own movies that you direct and write, because you will not have another person's perspective on it, and it will always just be your vision, and your vision might not be good sometimes. And Sean Baker is the editor of the film as well, and he might have gotten, like you said, hung up on the whole father-son thing, which in hindsight you could have taken that out and you would have been just fine. So not really negative, but it is, we have to address it. Not every film is perfect unless you're Moonlight. So because we were actually discussing, I was like, there's only a few films that have the exception of like perfection, and that's one of them. But in all honesty, films do have issues with them, whether they be minor or major. This doesn't really affect our grade. And so jumping into the positives, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I guess here's what I was telling Joel the whole time, when we left the theater, is that I really liked the movie quite a bit, but there was one particular scene that solidified this whole movie's journey, experience, character arcs, everything. And that has to do with the performance and the ending, acting scene from Mooney, the little girl. I thought that scene was one of the best acted scenes from any child I've ever seen. I thought that completely just gratified her character and how kid-like she was. She was a kid. Because at the beginning of the film, I told Joel this, and it makes total sense as to why I understand why people don't like this movie, because they're crappy kids. They're very unlikable at the very beginning of the movie. But as the movie progresses, you see that not only do they still continue to act like kids, they get in trouble, they swear, they don't listen to their parents, but you see the vulnerability with these kids. You see the humor that they bring in their lives. You see their innocence lost. You see, happy times, bad times. You see it all. And I think that ending scene is a perfect representation of what Sean Baker was trying to go for. He was trying to show the perspective through a kid's eyes in this situation, and how a kid can be fearful, and how a kid can be confused, but then also how a kid can just take the situation and run with it. I thought it was a great representation of how a kid would act in this scenario. And Sean Baker doing this with this motel literally being on the outskirts of this fantasy world known as Disney World was also a great metaphor for how people are that close to reaching the American dream in our society of just living a comfortable life, but never really actually getting there, whether it be from their own personal problems or just being, lazy, or, being put there through societal standards. It's just, I thought there was a lot more subtlety than I thought there would be, but it's primarily through the focus of this little girl's eyes, and also how the parents perceive the world, and how they just everything's crap, it just reality sucks, and how a child's mind is so innocent and so pure that they don't see the world like that. And I thought that was just absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, Joel, I'll jump over to you, since we basically have the same positives. I don't want to talk, in bulk and then you talk in bulk. Let's talk about it together. What about Sean Baker's direction, and especially Mooney, that character and that performance, what struck you about it the most?
I mean, it's just such a wonderful performance from this little girl. The story about how he found her is just the funniest thing. He kind of stalked her for 20 minutes in a Target, and clearly saw something in her and was correct about that thing. And ultimately, the mom kind of noticed that he was following her around, and then he, begged and on his knees, not literally, I don't know, but nevertheless, the whole exchange ended with her being cast as this character who is, it's an exceptional performance from a kid or from anybody. I mean, specifically though, because she is a kid, there are, avenues and layers of such compassion and such richness here that seems impossible to bring forth from a child who's under 10 at this point. We get a lot of really bad small kid performances, and this is the best performance I think I've seen ever from a kid. Certainly Quvenzhané Wallis in Beasts of the Southern Wild would be high up there, but this is a similar thing where you have just this rich portrait of a child, and it's the portrait part of it is achieved because of the performance, which is just incredible. It's obvious here that the screenplay, much of it was probably just a skeleton. There's a lot here that might have been, made up on the spot by the kids. From what I understand, it's rather difficult directing children from a screenplay. So I assume that Baker, left them to kind of do their thing during the scenes that we see them kind of interacting. But at the center of it is this kid who, she's just kind of learning. She's learning much more from her mother than she probably should. And, that's where we get into the other thing. The film has compassion for the mother and sees her as a compassionate woman who unconditionally loves her daughter, but she's doing things for her daughter, or on behalf of her daughter, I should say, that are terrible, that are negligent. And, you talked about the idea that, this movie is kind of seen through an innocent child's eyes. By the end of this movie, it's setting the stage for essentially removing that sense of innocence for Mooney. She's seeing the world in a much more adult way by the end of this. And, I don't want to give anything away, but the last 40 seconds literally confront that. The nature of the scene seems to most people to be real. We think it's a fantasy sequence, but we won't go into it at all. It deserves to be discovered, and trust me, nothing I just said ruins anything about it, because I didn't get into specifics. But nevertheless, the end of this movie certainly confronts the idea that childhood is transient. There's nothing perfect about childhood, anybody's childhood really. And here we have, like you said, the this kid trying to search for the American dream without really being able to convey that, through any sort of like verbal desire. But that's where her life is headed, is trying to get somewhere that's better. And, right now she's just kind of stuck in this loop of life in a hotel where she has to exist on the fringes of society. And it's such a compassionate, rich, real look at that. And then, there's also the Willem Dafoe character who, aside from the stuff with, his state as a father, we get a lot of insight into how he operates, the sort of the tics and quirks of his character are really interesting because, again, he's kind of this watchful protector, but also kind of a villain, kind of a thorn in their side, but also really, really protective of them because he knows them really well. He has these people in his hotel for long periods of time. We see him eject people, and we see the look on his face that he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to set these people in a worse position than they are in right now, but he has a business to run. He has expectations from people above him. You and I were talking about the scene where he threatens the mother with expulsion from the hotel, and every bit of his face is, it reads as, I don't want to do this, so please follow my instructions. This would be the worst thing for me because I love you and your daughter, but please do what I'm saying right now. And it's a really complex, rich character who could have been just the, sort of either the good man who runs the hotel or the bad man who runs the hotel. There's a meeting point, and it's such a great complex character, and that's the thing about this movie, is the humanity of it. That's what's compelling, is that there's this, he did it. Baker did this with Tangerine, which was set on the corner of Santa Monica and Highland in California, and it was this transgender buddy comedy, but it was also this really compassionate story of friendship that stands the test of time. And here, we have this unseemly kind of hotel on the outskirts. I've seen this hotel, by the way, in real life, and he captures it perfectly. He very clearly shot it there because it looks exactly the same. And he gets this rich portrait of poverty that has layers upon heaps of layers of compassion, but realness and raw energy. And it's this directing job is phenomenal. I mean, it's just from a visual standpoint, the cinematography by a female cinematographer, by the way. We don't have very many of those right now, but Alexis Zabe is the cinematographer here, and she does a marvelous job at capturing this place with kind of this dreamlike cinematography that also doesn't shy away from the rough stuff that's inside of it, and really great use of light and specifically sunlight. There's a lot of sunlight in this movie, and so it's just a great movie.
Well, I mean, to go on your cinematography point, it was quite magical to see how they portrayed Florida as this tropical retirement paradise that people make it out to be. And yes, it was colorful, it was vibrant, it was luscious, but in the core of the film is just devastating to watch these characters go down these paths. And I was telling Joel this, if anyone else noticed, the type of cinematography techniques actually switched from the children to the adults in different manners. So anytime when the children would have a scene, it kind of almost had this floaty, almost ghost-like cinematography where it was moving through the air, it was moving through this environment of children running around, playing and having a good time. And then anytime when it got to the adults, it was more of a static shot, and it would be a close-up handheld or more of a kind of wider kind of on the tripod type of shot, where it was a more grounded shot and it's more grounded reality, and it really kind of cuts through these kids' worlds, even though they see the world differently. There's even one shot where something is happening to someone's mom, and this kid is just standing there because he has no idea what to do. And it has him in focus and the action in front of him out of focus. And it's just stuff like that, just little nuances in the cinematography, whether it be the performances, the directing, that just really just kind of hit. And I thought the way it ended was perfect, and just that last ending scene just solidified everything. So it's an amazing little denouement that they created there with the the scene you're talking about, where this character just lets go of emotion essentially and just cries, and it's amazing. And then everything after that, it's an amazing final scene. Amazing. It's definitely one of the best of the year. I don't know where it's going to go in my top 10 right now. I have it on the outskirts just because I need to figure out where my top 10 lies right now. But even though I do have some hangups or whatever, I'm still going to give this movie an A+. I think it deserves that, and I'm cool with giving it that. I know a lot of people will think differently. I gave the same score to Logan, even though I have issues with that movie, but I just think the overall experience was so well done, and there's so many great aspects about it that the negatives don't even faze me. So I'm going with an A+, man. I mean, it's one of the better ones of the year.
It's definitely one of the best. I think I have it. Obviously, it's all a random guess right now, but it's, I think, number 3 or 4 for me right now. But nevertheless, it's a great film. I'm going with an A, if only because A+s are events. I very rarely give those out. I think I gave 2 out last year. One, maybe not even any in 2015. I think Under the Skin in 2014 was the only one of those. It's certainly like 10 movies so far this decade. But nevertheless, it is an A film all the way. It's incredible. It's one of the best films of the year. It features one of the best performances of the year, maybe even 2 with Willem Dafoe, maybe even 3 with Brie Van. We didn't even talk about her. It's such a naturalistic performance as this woman with this kind of fading sense of morality, and so it's a great film. So let's move on from there.
Oh man, so yeah, all right. So A+ film going into this. I'm just gonna say it right off the bat. This movie sucks. It's bad. And so listen, when Joel and I saw the trailer and we talked about it, the Snowman. If you were confused as to what we were talking about. I really don't want to call it by its name. So the movie, the trailer, it had all the working pieces. When you have like a Michael Fassbender, Rebecca Ferguson, who I loved in Mission Impossible, I was like, oh, she's a rising star. She gets put into this, and director of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Looks like it could be a decent little crime thriller, murder mystery, whodunit type of film. All right, so Joel and I, we went into this movie. We have expectations. Like, we just want it to be a decent movie. We're not looking for anything, extravagant. We saw The Florida Project on Monday. We know nothing's going to top that this week. So we just want a decent little movie that we could just be like, that was fine. You want to go waste a couple hours? I'm cool with it, fam. We walk out of it. I honestly don't know what we watched. I think we watched something that was imitating a film by showing us, 24 frames a second in some way, shape, or fashion. I'm kind of baffled at the incoherent mess that this movie is, and there's very, very little positives. But I'm gonna let Joel give his initial thoughts, and then we're gonna get the positives out of the way because we need to have a stern talking to at Universal on whoever greenlit this and said, yeah, that's the cut we're going to show in theaters with the public. So, Joel, initial thoughts, and then we'll jump into the positives.
Yeah, so this is The Snowman. It's from director Tomas Alfredson of Let the Right One In and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It is an adaptation of the novel by Yu Nesbo, which is, weirdly enough, the 7th novel in the series. I don't know why they started there, but anyway, it is about, and I'm going to say this and try not to laugh at the fact that this is the name of the main character.
And this is the first problem with the film, by the way. And this is a very small problem, but they should have changed the name.
This is a relatively small problem. There's also another problem involving the name that I'll get to later. It's a funny problem, though. So, weirdly enough, the character's name is spoken with an English accent in the movie. However, it is technically a Norwegian name that should be Harry Hole. But because they pronounce it as it looks on the page in the movie with an English accent, his name is Harry Hole. He's a detective, and he's been bored with his life.
This movie reeks of a Harry Hole.
Yes, okay.
There you go. There's your joke for the day.
There it is. Enjoy it, folks. You'll never hear it again. No, I'm just kidding. So, he's this detective, and he's been bored with his life. He's got this hellish home life with a son, or a sort of kind of son, whose mother has left him. She's left him for this hormone specialist. And Michael Fassbender plays Harry Hole. I just have to pause before I say that name every time. And so he is matched up with an agent named Katrine, who is investigating a missing persons call. And he's also at the same time received this weird note about how somebody's going to like build a snowman near a victim. Anyway, in any case, they stumble upon these series of crimes in which the victims' heads are removed and switched for heads of snowmen that are built. Sometimes they're built near the site, the full snowman. Sometimes there's an incomplete snowman somewhere else on site, and they have to figure out who it is. At first, it seems that they suspect that this city official, who's played by J.K. Simmons with a really unbelievable accent, he's preparing for the World Cup to arrive in Oslo, and they suspect that he's involved because he's involved in something or other that involves taking pictures of women, though it doesn't really tell us what this is. And anyway, the movie kind of spends its time with the investigation that Harry launches, and also kind of flashes back to the first time that it was investigated by this character played, and this is really tough to talk about. It's a very sad thing. Honestly, this is very awkward. He's played by Val Kilmer. I'm going to pause here to say that I'm not going to tell anybody who my source is on this, but somebody that I know recently had interactions with him, and essentially they feel that he's near the end. He was diagnosed with oral cancer not long ago, and so in the movie they cast him as this first investigator, but he can't talk, or he can talk but he can't really say anything. So I don't know if they dubbed his own voice over it. I hope not, or if it was another actor because the actor that they chose doesn't sound like Val Kilmer, but essentially he just mouths dialogue, and I think that they might have like done some special effects thing to his face or at sometimes. Anyway, whatever the case, it's a really awkward appearance in the movie. The character is like ends up being completely innocuous. There's no significance to that particular subplot. Much like there's not really any significance to the subplot involving J.K. Simmons. It's essentially like this movie like randomly handpicks a suspect and then gives it to us at the end. But nevertheless, that's what the movie's about. It's just a really confusing version of what I just told. Yeah. So I'm going to get into my positives, and they are very small because I'm going to say it. This movie, and Chase knows this was very close to getting my lowest rating. Very close. I usually reserve an F, or on my site, a 0-star rating for things that genuinely make me angry or are completely worthless in every way. Recently, that's been Death Note. I hate Death Note. And then Queen of the Desert, which is the Werner Herzog movie. Those are the two movies that have... and then Temple, which is... And I might be forgetting some other one. I don't know. I'm trying to block those out. Temple was the horror movie from Michael Barrett, or whatever his name is, Simon Barrett. So this was very close to getting that. It didn't quite make it because I think that there are a couple of things with potential here. I think that the cinematography from Dion Beebe, who's an Oscar winner, there are occasions when the outside establishing shots are really attractive, but for the most part it kind of looks bland. It's just this gray palette, and especially on the inside of buildings looks really unpleasant. But nevertheless, the outside sequences capture snow really well. They sort of reminded me of how snow was captured in Wind River sometimes. There was certainly a similarity there. And the other positive is the general premise, I think, is really interesting. I like these kinds of ultra-violent, or I guess you could say cases based in like ultra-violent crimes that are gruesome and that are dark. And you could see like the pieces of that here. that's the end of my positives. Chase, give yours.
It's just a short. So I will say that the first three opening shots were great. They were very cold. They were haunting. They were beautiful. They were disturbing. But it fit what was supposed to be the tone of the movie, where you have like this haunting crime set inside like this beautiful kind of like snowy landscape. And also, you know, I feel bad for Val Kilmer being in this, but he actually had the best shot in the entire movie. When the camera does this humongous, upward kind of movement, and it overlooks him shooting his gun into the sky with the kind of like body imprint on the ground with the birds on it. I thought that was awesome. Like
that was definitely the best shot of the movie.
It was fantastic. But and then that's it for the cinematography. And I will say the music was fine, I guess. Like that's it. Like we got to dive into this because this is it's a frustrating movie to talk about because there's so many good parts to this, to where they could have made at least a decent murder mystery, but they screwed that up. So
even a mediocre mystery, I would have been fine
mediocre.
with that.
I would have been like you. I've been like, okay, I'm not gonna ever watch that again. It was fine, whatever. But it couldn't even do that. So in order to do this, we have to break it down section by section, because a lot of people are just going to be like, oh, they're just saying it's terrible and they can't back up their claim. Well, okay, I'm going to back up my claim. So let's start with the writing, the story, and the characters. Okay, the dialogue is ham-fisted, it's cheesy, it reminds me of like some movie called The Girl on the Train, where it just feels very ham-fisted and very just forced down your throat. The characters are frustrating because if they are only in this movie for a scene, Toby Jones, or they are the main characters to where we know nothing about them. These are the most thinly veiled, one-dimensional characters I've seen in a film all year. I know nothing about Michael Fassbender other than he drinks and he has a kid. I know nothing. These characters are basically just pawns to move this very like awkward, haphazard story forward, and that's it. And speaking of the story, it's confusing. And Joel even said this before we even saw the movie, because this was floating around on Twitter, how the director came out and said that 10 to 15% of the script was not shot. You can definitely tell. Just the way it's constructed, it just feels so awkward and so rushed. It's almost like they plopped us in the middle of the movie and said, here you go, have fun. And not only that, the ending is so weak. Like, what was that? It just... Yeah. The villain goes away. I'm not even joking. This is how it is. The villain goes away. Michael Fassbender bursts into a home, looks at his kid. Next scene, he's in a group. He says some line, and the movie ends. I'm like, was there more? Like, it just seems so just awkwardly cut that the story it made no sense. And I had no idea what was going on half the time.
And it seemed like a weird sequel stinger, the last line.
It was so weird. So that's it for the writing section. So jumping into the directing, one, like Joel said with the cinematography for most of the movie, there is no visual style to this. It is gray, it is boring, it is bland. You could have made this into a snowy Zodiac movie, but you decided to make it as bare minimum and bland as possible. Not only that, so there's no directorial style. So it's just a very bland, forgettable movie. Not only that, the way this movie is edited, because it goes into the directing. I don't know why the director didn't say something, or the studio. This movie is so awkwardly cut. Just from the opening sequence, you can definitely tell shots are rushed, nothing is really ever established, and they're trying to push this movie through some type of like movie rectum as fast as possible so you can just get it and leave. Like there was no weight to anything. It was just like, we got to show you this pawn, this pawn, this pawn. We got to set up this. We got to set up that. The opening scene pretty much solidifies the whole entire experience. You have no idea who the characters' names are. You have no idea what's going on. Something happens, and you're like, okay, that's the start of the movie. That's cool. So you have no context of anything. I realize why they did that, because they want to have the person revealed at the end. but it just seems so tacked on that it had no flow to it. It just seems all just jagged. This movie is just a jagged knife going into you. At least I would like a smooth knife going into me because it would make the experience less painful. But you made it into it like this jagged, like weird thing to where like nothing really added up to make sense. It was just all thrown together. They even have sequences and flashback sequences to a certain time and place, like with Val Kilmer's character, who, by the way, his character didn't even matter in the long run. It was also with J.K. Simmons' character. So you're either a one-dimensional character or your character has no purpose in the entire movie. And it was just there to show you because they wanted another pawn into the scheme, whatever. And I think the biggest offense in the directing and editing, I had no idea what the time frame was. Did this take place over 2 days, a week? Where were we at? They only mentioned one location throughout the entire movie. I had no idea where I was half the time. I had no idea what time frame it was. It was just, it's like this movie didn't care to provide even the most basic, information to you as an audience. I'm not saying you have to spoon feed us, but you gotta give us some sense of, just where we're at. You gotta give us some sense of what is happening so we can, formulate our own opinions and make it fun. That's what these murder mystery movies are about. It's about, presenting us with clues and seeing oh man, what's going to happen. Joel turns to me halfway in the movie that's the killer. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Because they stage it in such a way to where we're not going to trust you to figure it out, so we're just going to give it to you very subtly. And it's no. Why are you doing this? It is so weird. And so getting into the acting, speaking of people that don't care, is everyone. Everyone does not care in this movie.
Everyone does not care.
No, they don't. Michael Fassbender, this is the worst thing I've ever seen him attached to. And even he would bring some type of clout to projects. He did nothing to this movie. Rebecca Ferguson, God bless her soul, she tried. But she was just pointless. J.K. Simmons, his weirdo accent. What was that about? Pointless. And I feel so bad and this is why I'm not giving this movie an F. Val Kilmer's character, not only one pointless, but that ADR is atrocious. You made, whoever suggested that made him look bad. It was a different person. It wasn't even synced properly. It was so, no one in our theater said anything. These people were eating it up, and Joel even mentioned it when we were about to leave. This woman in front of us said, that wasn't a bad movie. What movie were you watching, ma'am? And so, every time when Val Kilmer popped up, I just rolled my eyes because I was this ADR is bad. And I knew it was going to be bad because the way they opened his scene up was he didn't say a word, and then they would cut to the camera behind him, and then the dialogue would happen. I'm like, oh no, they're hiding something. Yeah. And then once the camera was in front of me, I was like, that's what they're hiding. It was, I could not believe what I was watching. Just this whole experience was so bad. Every aspect about it, except for some of the cinematography, was just so haphazard and so choppy. I could not, once the director said 10 to 15% of the movie was not filmed, you knew something bad was going to happen. And I think I hit on all the points, Joel. I'm trying to make my case clear so people just don't look at this and go, oh, they're just bashing it. I'm telling you, this movie didn't know what it wanted to be. It just, Joel, take it away, man. Is there anything I'm missing?
I mean, it's a disaster from the ground up. I'm totally behind you in every way. I think that there's obviously, with a lot of people, an impulse to distrust a lot of negative reviews. But this has been getting some of the worst reviews of the year, and there's a reason. It's amazingly bad, bizarrely bad, actually. It's like the pieces here should work, or at least, like we said, it should at least be a mediocre movie, but it isn't. It's something worse. It's pointlessly brutal and cruel and pointless.
I forgot to mention that, the way the killer kills his victims and places it on little midget snowmen. It's what was the point in that? Because his motivation is stupid. I'm like, that was
stupid.
His motivation to kill people?
Once we learn the motivation, it's really ridiculous. But what he does to enact that is pointlessly cruel towards women. And right now, we have this conversation going on about, pointless violence toward women in movies. And this movie does not help. It takes a weird, like, creepy joy in showing us these murders. And that's why, I think that More Control, it could have been intriguing, and it could have been that kind of sort of David Fincher-esque kind of darkness. But here it's just pointless, so the cruelty sticks out more. And, with a David Fincher movie, you get the cruelty, but there's a sense of admiration in the filmmaking and in the storytelling. And here, it just seems like it's showboating, essentially. It's just like, oh, look at how, brutal we can be in showing you the aftermath of these crimes. And in the process, they completely, well, first of all, they fail the Bechdel test. Second of all, which is mostly a joke, but second of all, it's just, again, it's pointlessly cruel. It's incomprehensible most of the time. It's an awful movie, and I'm giving it a D-, if only because, again, an F is something special. But, like, a D- is what I gave the Bye Bye Man this year. So, this is on that level. It's on that level of, even on a pure storytelling and competence level, generally speaking, this might be a little bit more polished in its production, but it's just as bad. It's just as ill-conceived in its plot as something like The Bye Bye Man. And
I'm gonna go ahead and just not spoil the ending, and not say who it is, because you guys have no context. But this is how cheesy and asinine the motivation for the killer was. Michael Fassbender looks at the killer, right, and goes, "Oh, I think the reason why you were killing all those women was because you didn't have a dad growing up." What? That's your motivation to kill people? Like, fuck off! Like, it just felt that whole thing was just,
it's again the cruelty, just the cruelty of, it's like it's almost shaming fatherless people. It's weird. It's just,
I don't even know, man.
It's very weird. And just to, like, put this in proper context, I give half a star on my website to movies that are, commonly ones that are unintentionally funny, or ones whose badness is baffling rather than infuriating. And it's the fourth one of the year for me that I gave half a star, and to put it in the company of The Bye Bye Man, Chips, and Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, it feels like it belongs there, and that's a really sad thing. It doesn't quite belong down there with Death Note, but
yeah. Well,
Death Note's the ugliest movie of the year, and I mean morally. But
there might be another one that could compete with that. But I totally agree with you. D- for me as well. Some of the cinematography was fine. That's about it. That's all I can give it. And I'm primarily not giving this an F because it was one of the saddest things to watch. Not only Val Kilmer in this, but just the way they like I said, just poorly did his ADR, and it's just
they embarrassed him. Yeah, they embarrassed him.
It's really bad. And the fact that, like what Joel said, he's probably on the end of his ropes right now. It's like this is the last thing he's going to have. Like, it's just I absolutely just hate that he did that, and so that's why I'm not going to fail it. And I didn't even think about this until, like, I was talking about the movie, but I said it earlier, like, Toby Jones is listed in the credits. He's literally in one scene, and he has no dialogue. Like, that just shows
he has a little bit of dialogue. He gets interviewed by Michael Fassbender at one point. But other than that, I mean, I think in the other scene he has like one word or something. It's
even then,
really
that just shows you the care that they have towards, the characters and just, the actors and stuff. It's like, oh, you're going to be signing on to a good project. No, you're not. So D- for the Snowman. It never needs to see the light of day at all. If you want to buy this on Blu-ray or rent it, God bless your soul, but I am not about that life. So what about you guys, though? Let us know down below what you thought of 1, the Florida Project, and 2, the Snowman. If you got different opinion views, that's totally cool. I want to hear about them. If you like the Snowman or if you hate the Florida Project, because I know some people that do hate the Florida Project. So please let us know down below. Now, Joel, before we move on to the box office results, I must say that I was trying to check my email just real quick, because I got a ding or whatever, and so I pulled up the internet window, and it actually accidentally went to Box Office Mojo, so it flashed me the top 3. So in order to save the embarrassment and all that stuff, go ahead and just announce the top 5, because I feel like I cheated. So it was an accident. I apologize, but Joel, can you tell us like how bad the movies were this weekend? Because I know for a fact that Geostorm and Boo 2 came out, the Snowman, like this would just seem like a really bad weekend for movies all around. Did the crap?
There were two others. Only the Brave, which was about the Granite Mountain hotshots, and Same Kind of Different as Me, which is the new PureFlix movie. And then there were also the limited rollouts of The Killing of the Sacred Deer and Wonderstruck. Those both started their limited runs this week. So before I get in, well, I guess I'll go ahead and do the top 5, and then I'll do the other stuff. So yeah, so at number 5, Only the Brave with $6 million. It's got a $38 million budget. That's not going to be something that's going to be a huge hurdle. I don't think. It's probably not off to a great start, but whatever. At number 4, Blade Runner 2049 with $7.2 million for a total of $74 million domestically and $194.1 million worldwide. It has a $150 million budget, so kind of struggling worldwide at least. Domestically, it's not doing very well. Number 3, Happy Death Day with $9.4 million. It's got a budget of for a total of $41 million essentially, 40.7 domestically and 53.6 worldwide. It's got a production budget of $4.8 million, so that's doing really well. Number 2 is Geostorm with $13.3 million. So here's where this. I haven't seen Geostorm. I'm probably going to rent it at some point. At worldwide, it's at $62.9 million. All right. The budget, Chase, is $120 million.
What did they spend that money on?
The reshoots. This thing was shot 3 years ago, and then they extensively reshot like almost half of it. So that upped the price. I think it originally had a production budget of like $70 million. Like honestly, the reshoots are insanely expensive for this. So it shot it up to 120. This thing is failing miserably. I mean, this number is pitiful. It might be number 2, but it's awful. Yeah. Okay, so number 1, Boo 2, A Medea Halloween with $21.7 million. It has a $25 million budget. So it's probably going to make its money back like tomorrow, or make its budget back by tomorrow. And then it's got to double that. I'd probably say like $75 million, probably.
I don't think it did. It didn't do that much marketing. I'd say probably anywhere from 65 to 70. But you're right though. Like getting into the the Halloween spirit and whatnot, it's gonna do fine.
Yeah. It'll make that money back. All right. So that was the top 5. Now, all right. I'm gonna start with the 2 limited releases to build up to the Snowman. All right. So. The Killing of a Sacred Deer opened in 4 theaters, and it made $114,000.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. It's $28,000 per theater, I think. So, Wonderstruck. I don't know if I said it. Opened at number 28, I should say. Wonderstruck opened at number 31 in 4 theaters with $68,000. Not as great, but whatever. All right. Same Kind of Different as Me is again the new PureFlix movie. It opened in 1,300 theaters to a tune of $2.7 million at number 12. Now, The Snowman. This makes me so happy, considering how awful it is. So it's got a $35 million budget. Likely most of that was spent on Michael Fassbender. It opened at number 8 with $3.4 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and worldwide, it's at 22. So, yeah, worldwide it has barely made half of its budget, of its like the starting point.
Wow.
So that is the news. In terms of the other stuff that I like to do, there weren't really any big drops worth mentioning, but there was a huge rise, and I'm actually now interested to see this movie after hearing some pretty good things about it. The trailer was underwhelming, but Breathe, which is the new movie with Andrew Garfield as Robin Cavendish, it added 311 theaters to its order for a total of 315, and it rose 600% basically, and it made 155,000 this week for a total of 187,000. Obviously, people don't want to see this movie because it's only at number 26, but so it's barely like functioning at the box office. But whatever the case, interesting little rise there. It's still a total of $495 per theater, which is not great. But that's it's kind of an uneventful week. I can't speak. An uneventful week at the box office, but except for, of course, Tyler Perry. But yeah, so that's the box office news this week.
I think what we're starting to see is cannibalism in the Hollywood culture, because I'm looking at the list right now. It is absolutely insane that we have excuse me, all these like smaller films like Killing of a Sacred Deer, Goodbye Christopher Robin, Breathe, Mark Felt, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, like Battle of the Sexes. We're seeing all these like Oscar pushing movies. Some of these movies are barely even making $1 million. Like it's insane. Like
it's very
the amount.
Sad.
Yeah, I mean, but
Whereas,
this is what happens when you have 5 movies come out each week. A lot of them are going to get lost in the shuffle, and like you have no one to blame but yourself.
$2 million worth of people saw the My Little Pony movie. It's just really like, I don't know. See different movies, people.
Yeah, but I mean, that's basically the well, it depends on which movies. Now, if you want to pass on Mark Felt, I'm cool with that. You want to pass on friend request came in at number 43.
Oh yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah. Also, another movie that kind of came out in 2 theaters was Tragedy Girls with $10,000. And Joel and I are going to be reviewing that next week. So not on this show, but
we got different feelings on that one. But
yeah. I mean, it's just like I said, interesting because it gets lost in the wayside. So it's just this is what happens. I mean, look at Marshall dropping 50%, made $1.5 million. You're releasing too much, Hollywood. Slow down. Good Lord. Anyways, that's it for the box office results, guys. So, that's it for the show. Pretty cool show, I must say, with my voice getting just even deeper and sexier as we go throughout. Joel, what are we doing next week for episode 205?
Next week, the main movie that we're going to be covering is The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and then I think we each have one review that we're going to be doing. Otherwise, we won't tell you what those are. But we'll. Well, I guess we could tell them, right?
I mean, we might as well, because they already know.
Might as well. They're wide releases.
My deep infatuation with one of them, so it's pretty much a guarantee that one's going to be reviewed for me.
Well, Mark is going to be fulfilling the desire of his god that he sacrifices things to by reviewing Jigsaw, and he will first kneel at the shrine that he has created in the series' honor. And
did you say Mark?
Chase, I have no idea. We were talking about Mark Felt. I'm getting like a bunch of names mixed up.
I think Joel is hallucinating from his cold, and I'm actually the same one. I was
still looking at the list, and I was looking at the name Mark Felt, and I just said Mark.
Well, whatever you just said, just replace Mark with my name, and he's actually right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he has a shrine. Anyway, it'll be Jigsaw for him, and then for me, I'm reviewing Suburbicon, which is the new George Clooney movie. directed movie, I should say. So, yeah.
But do you see my problem, folks? Look at next week alone. Jigsaw, Suburbicon, and Thank You for Your Service all open in 2,000 plus theaters. Then you have all the stuff that just came out. Like, you're getting swallowed up, Hollywood. Stop it.
And looking at next year's slate, where there's like a blockbuster type thing like almost every week, is really worrying, because those movies are all going to lose money.
I don't understand it, but you know what? That's why we don't run in the business. They do, and they can suffer as, the weeks go. So that will do it.
I just wanted to tell Mark, thank you for having me on this week.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Anyways, guys, this is episode 204. But before we head out and plug our stuff, please spread this around and let people know this is a good movie podcast while you're listening to on the toilet, going to the gym, in your car ride, wherever you are at. We would love to be a part of your day because we appreciate it. But before we head out, Joel, where can the people find you online?
You can find my writing at joelunfilmed.com and also at dallasmoviescreenings.com. All of my reviews this week were joint posted at both places. I reviewed The Florida Project and Snowman for Dallas Movie Screenings, and I also reviewed a solid little documentary called Take Every Wave, The Life of Laird Hamilton. Laird Hamilton was a pro surfer who didn't expect to become one, and it's a pretty solid little portrait of how he got there. So you can find my writing there. You can follow me on Twitter at RealJoelCopling and on Letterboxd at JCopling.
That is correct, and you can follow me on Twitter at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get early reviews or reviews that we don't do on this show. And of course, follow on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, all those listening devices and platforms and stuff. Support this show because you guys are the ones that make it possible. We love doing it for you guys, but you guys just you push us to do better, and we really appreciate that. So, and the intro and outro music is done by my friends band Fervent Roze, but all the links will be in the description below. So tune in next week, guys, for another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where, hey, if you made it through this entire podcast and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one. Episode 204 is in the bag, 205 is on the way, and it's getting close to Halloween, so spooky shit's going to happen. I don't know how to end this. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.